How did the two of you prepare for some of those scenes?
Just came in and did it. He's a big guy now, you know. He's a big guy to work with, great guy to work with.
Robert Duvall recently gave an interview in which he spoke frankly about his feelings about the decline of Hollywood. Throughout his 60-plus years in the business, Duvall has earned a reputation for being forthright. He said what many have suspected: Hollywood has lost its soul. The business has fallen, in his opinion, due to a lack of focus on storytelling and creativity in favor of works aimed at making money. His statement begs the question, why? What recent developments in the sector prompted him to make his voice heard? Examining the great actor's comments on the current status of the profession in further detail is warranted. Robert Duvall came into this world in San Diego, California, on January 5, 1931. His father, Rear Admiral William Howard Duvall, was a United States Navy officer, and his mother, Mildred Virginia Duvall, was a hobby actor. The burden of his father's expectations was heavy on Robert as he grew up. His father hoped he would enlist in the military and attend the Naval Academy. Duvall had a hard time in school and just enjoyed acting. He just scraped by in school and once confessed that acting was the one thing he was good at. His father had wanted him to become a doctor, but he decided to join the Army instead. He was able to follow his acting dreams after this choice, which was a watershed moment in his life. Acting was always something that interested Duvall. His acting career began in Bellport, Long Island at the summer theater known as the Gateway Playhouse. His theater debut was in 1952, playing the role of the pilot in Laughter in the Stars, a musical based on The Little Prince. Initially dabbling in television, Duvall did so in the 1960s. He was in guest spots on series including Armstrong Circle Theater, Playhouse 90, and The Defenders. The jobs in the past were but a taste of what lay ahead. He first appeared on Broadway in 1966 in the thriller Wait Until Dark. More than a part, Robert Duvall's debut on Broadway was a watershed point in his career. He demonstrated his love of performing while standing beneath the spotlights. Still, that was only the start. He made a spirited comeback to the stage in 1977 as the lead in American Buffalo, David Mamet's powerful drama. The Drama Desk Award for Outstanding Actor was nominated to him because of his riveting performance. Duvall had transformed the stage into his arena and was emerging victorious. Duvall was already a household figure in the film industry when he had his great stage appearances. Playing the character of Boo Radley in 1962's To Kill a Mockingbird was his first big screen job. Duvall left an impact even though he didn't say anything. He cemented his place in cinema history with an enthralling performance that enthralled spectators. Duvall had a busy decade in the 1960s and 1970s. Before his breakout role in 1968's iconic action flick Bullitt, famous for its nail-biting vehicle pursuit scenes, in 1963's Captain Newman, Maryland, he proved the next year that he could hold his own in an ensemble film with John Wayne in True Grit. Duvall possessed unparalleled skill. He had a breakthrough role in the groundbreaking 1970 film M. His film credits include 1971's THX 1138 and 1972's Joe Kidd, both set in the far future. However, that year his heart was captivated by his performance in Tomorrow. At the Actors Studio, Robert Duvall honed his craft, which shaped his career. He often talks about how Tomorrow is more than simply a role for him. It's his favorite film overall. Duvall hit a turning point in 1983. Tender Mercies was the part that would define him after years of honing his skill. A broken, drunk, and regretful country singer, that was Duvall. He was the character, not simply a performer. The narrative was communicated by the hope and agony in his eyes. He won the Oscar for Best Actor for his moving performance. It was a victory that reflected his unwavering commitment and the path he had traveled. The tale of Duvall, however, was far from over. Notable films have previously featured his outstanding acting. He played the role of Tom Hagen, the cool-headed lawyer for the Corleone family, in The Godfather. He demonstrated his calm, collected demeanor and received his first Oscar nomination for this part. After that, Duvall portrayed Lieutenant Colonel Kilgore in Apocalypse Now. His now iconic statement, "I love the smell of napalm in the morning," was his. He solidified his position in cinematic history and received another Oscar nomination for this tremendous portrayal. In the same year, he delved into the issues of love and discipline as a rigid military parent in The Great Santini. This part was a smashing success, and he received another Oscar nomination for it. Beyond acting, Duvall's enthusiasm knew no bounds. Not only did he receive another Oscar nod for his performance as a disturbed preacher in The Apostle, but he also wrote, directed, and produced the picture. His impressive resume only kept becoming longer. Once again thrust into the Oscar limelight, Duvall's exact and captivating performance in the judicial thriller A Civil Action propelled him to stardom. His most recent Academy Award nomination came for his performance in 2014's The Judge. He portrayed a strict dad embroiled in a contentious court battle with his kid. He delivered a stirring and unforgettable performance, as always. Oscar nominations weren't Duvall's only accomplishment either. He played memorable parts throughout his life. Both of his roles as Tom Hagen in Part 2 of The Godfather and as an actor in Conversations are regarded as masterpieces. In Network, he revealed his shadowy side with an incisive attack on television. In True Confessions, a murder mystery with a twist of treachery, he captivated the audience. In the redemptive story, The Natural, Duvall stood firmly at Robert Redford's side. In Days of Thunder, he mentored a teenage Tom Cruise as he entered the NASCAR scene. He brought much-needed solace to a troubled newsroom in the paper and portrayed a tired man in Falling Down. Duvall never slowed down, even as he aged. His performances in Crazy Heart, Open Range, and Sling Blade were heartfelt. He played a strange recluse in the film Get Low. In Jack Reacher, he worked with Tom Cruise again, and in Widows, he displayed his ferocity. In addition to his cinematic career, Duvall had a significant impact on television with guest appearances in a number of series that showcased his versatility. In 2007, the AMC series Broken Trail had a notable moment. He portrayed the role of Augustus Mitch Prinz Ritter, a veteran cowboy who escorts Chinese females to safety in the American West. It was a story that took Duvall to new heights, full of peril, tragedy, and salvation. In Broken Trail, Robert Duvall played a strong and authentic portrayal. He was fully immersed in the role of Prinz Ritter. Acting was only his medium. He conveyed the calm power and profound anguish of a man who had witnessed too much and was still burdened by his history. With his outstanding performance, Duvall contributed to the show's success. He won several honors for his performance on television. For his role in a limited series, he was named Primetime Emmy Outstanding Lead Actor. Not only was this an authentic acknowledgement of his skill and commitment, but it went beyond that. An Emmy for Outstanding Limited Series goes a long way toward showing that Broken Trail was a smashing success. These accolades demonstrated Duvall's unparalleled talent for evoking strong emotions on screen and his unwavering commitment to acting throughout his life. After decades of legendary film performances, he proved to everyone that he could still be spectacular on TV. Broken Trail proved Duvall's enduring strength and brilliance. It wasn't simply another performance. As a result of his Emmy wins, Duvall kept surprising people. He challenged himself and proved he could excel in cinema and television. His impact was amplified. Robert Duvall's romantic and marital journey is a tapestry of joy and sorrow. There has been a lot of focus on his private life throughout the years. Despite his 4 marriages, he has remained childless. In 2007, Duvall was forthright about this, stating, "I guess I'm shooting blanks." He was expressing the difficult reality that, despite his best efforts, parenthood was not a part of his life. He brought up the many years he had spent seeking something that never came, admitting that he had tried with other women both in and out of marriage. While filming his breakout role, To Kill a Mockingbird, he experienced love for the first time. While there, he crossed paths with Barbara Benjamin, who had worked as both a dancer and an announcer for the Jackie Gleason Show. She wasn't your average damsel. Her film credits included The Courtship of Eddie's Father and Guys and Dolls. Duvall was captivated by Barbara's gracefulness and charisma, and the two were married in 1964. They had 2 girls together from Barbara's first marriage, but after 11 years of marriage, Barbara and her husband secretly divorced in 1975. Duvall persisted in seeking love even after his first marriage failed. Actress Gail Youngs was his bride in 1982. There was optimism around this marriage, and Duvall briefly found himself encircled by a Hollywood family. He became the brother-in-law of Jim Youngs, Robin Young, and John Savage after his marriage to Gail. Robert Duvall's marriages had their ups and downs, just like any other Hollywood relationship. After only 4 years of marriage, he and Gail Youngs divorced in 1986 due to the strain of the public eye and the demands placed on him. Love, nevertheless, remained a priority for Duvall. Sharon Thorne was a passionate dancer who matched his own fire and enthusiasm, and he wed her in 1991. It appeared for a time that he had found a lifelong companion, but their marriage also ended in 1995 after 4 years. In spite of all this, Duvall persisted in his quest to find love. When he finally spotted something remarkable in 2005, his persistence had paid off. Luciana Pedraza, from a world full with history and beauty, was his bride. Susanna Ferrari Billinghurst was an Argentine aviation pioneer, and she was her granddaughter. Their chance encounter was more of a twist of destiny than a spectacular Hollywood production. The flower shop was closed, so I went to the bakery. If the flower shop had been open, I never would have met her, Luciana said with fondness. It was as if fate had intervened, bringing them together at the most optimal moment. In many ways, their friendship stood apart. Duvall was 41 years Luciana's senior, yet their friendship had no bounds. Curiously, they were born on the same day, January 5th, as if their meeting had been predetermined. Since 1997, they had been a couple, building a life together that was rich with creativity, love, and exciting experiences. Along with Luciana, Duvall directed, produced, and performed in the Buenos Aires set Assassination Tango, one of their most significant efforts. For Robert Duvall, Assassination Tango was an expression of his passion for tango and Argentine culture beyond the scope of a simple film. On and off film, he brought the tango to life, but for him, it was more than a dance. Duvall owned tango studios in America and Argentina, and he was famously good at dancing. Just like the characters he played, tango was a metaphor for life, full of passion, grace, and intensity. His interests extended beyond dancing, though. Duvall also devoted a lot of time to the disciplined and powerful fighting art of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He and Luciana worked on it together, fusing the controlled strength of martial arts with the elegant motions of tango. Their physical and emotional connection was strengthened by their mutual love of movement. Robert Duvall's passionate and diverse personality shone through in his life's path, which included the realms of politics as well as acting and dancing. Duvall was well known for his conservatism and libertarian views, which led many to label him as a conservative. His public persona and political activism were both influenced by these principles. The inauguration of George W. Bush in 2001 was extended an invitation to Duvall. His impact as a revered Hollywood icon was duly recognized at this occasion. Duvall felt privileged to be a part of this historic event as he stood among government leaders and famous people. His involvement in politics did not end there. By openly supporting Rudy Giuliani in the 2008 Republican presidential primaries in 2007, he had already established his position. His reputation as an outspoken political figure was cemented by this endorsement, which was a powerful declaration of his ideas. Robert Duvall was heavily involved in politics, rather than only observing. At the 2008 Republican National Convention, Duvall stood in favor of Rudy Giuliani as he sought the presidency. As each contender vied for voters' attention, the atmosphere was electric and exciting. Duvall increased the level of his political engagement in September 2008. He showed up for a New Mexico rally to back Sarah Palin and John McCain. The presence of Duvall simply served to heighten the already high energy levels. He was more than just an actor then. He was a powerful Republican voice. Aside from this, though, his political career had only begun. Duvall endorsed Mitt Romney for president in 2012. He clearly believed in his principles because of his dedication to these candidates. However, Duvall's perspective changed along with the political landscape as time went on. He shocked everyone in 2014 with a major news. He declared his independence during an interview. Curiosity and inquiries were raised by this shift. Many were perplexed by Duvall's change of heart, given that he had consistently shown his support for the Republican Party. The reason behind this is his increasing discontent with the limitations of the two-party system. He yearned to be authentic and free to think for himself, unfettered by any political ideology. Robert Duvall came to the forefront to expose some shocking realities within the film industry, in addition to his political work. In an impassioned discussion, Robert Duvall addressed the challenges that come with celebrity and financial success. It was via this action that he demonstrated a facet of Hollywood that the general public never sees: the consequences that stardom has on celebrities. His statements, which were more than just casual observations, were reinforced by his years of knowledge and his genuine passion for the ideas that represent the United States of America. Duvall asserts that producers and agents in Hollywood hold a significant amount of authority, and that, as a result, their influence is easily susceptible to corruption. According to his point of view, the dissemination of political ideals seemed to be more essential to many people working in the industry than the production of authentic and noteworthy stories. It appeared as though the actual skill of filmmaking was in danger of being overshadowed by the gloss and glamour that would be associated with Hollywood. The irritation that Duvall displayed during the interview could not have been misunderstood. As he mentioned, he has made the decision to abstain from getting embroiled in the political atmosphere of Hollywood. His self-description was that he is a political atheist, which means that he does not take a position on any political issue and instead focuses all of his attention on his employer. His words were direct and forceful despite their simplicity. Duvall had become exhausted as a result of the persistent squabbling and the pervasive manner in which politics impacted the entire company. He wanted that people would pay more attention to other things, such as storytelling and performance, which were the things that really mattered. Duvall was concerned about a number of things, not the least of which was the political atmosphere in Hollywood. He also discussed the pressures that people in the profession experience in order to conform to the standards of the industry. It was brought to my attention that a great number of individuals experience feelings of pressure to voice specific beliefs in order to preserve their relevance or acceptance. Duvall's tone was solemn and demanding as he stated how it seemed as though everyone was supposed to share the same perspective, and those who did not hold the same opinion were disregarded. The expression of art, in his opinion, ought to encourage a variety of perspectives rather than imposing a single dominating point of view. It is a real issue in Hollywood that people are afraid of being kicked out of the industry for expressing a different opinion, and Robert Duvall tackled this issue head-on. According to him, the corporate world has shifted from appreciating different points of view to aggressively urging employees to adhere to group norms. Due to the fact that they have opinions, Duvall is of the opinion that artists should not be silenced. He was of the opinion that this kind of pressure acts as a barrier to real expression and originality, which are two of the most important characteristics of great art. It became increasingly annoying to Duvall as he proceeded to rant about the fact that modern Hollywood places a higher importance on public perception than it does on true competence. According to his point of view, the art of acting appeared to be being neglected in favor of the imperative of achieving financial success and popular recognition. Rather than concentrating on what appeared to be appealing for commercial purposes, Duvall longed for a time when the telling of stories was the primary motivation for the production of films. The fact that the industry in this day and age was more concerned with generating a lot of noise than it was with genuinely telling stories was his primary worry. He remembers a period when those who worked in the film industry were daring and determined, producing pictures that had tremendous emotional depth and stories that were delivered from the heart. A tale such as that has a way of staying with people, but he was beginning to fear that the commercial concerns were beginning to take precedence over the rich narrative. It was in an interview that Duvall brought up the fact that Hollywood is all about the ins and outs of social standing, but he made it quite clear that he couldn't care less about it. The production of high-quality films and the telling of stories that were fascinating were always his main goals. According to his point of view, the story, which is not intended to be current or popular, ought to be the focal point of the filmmaking process. While Duvall was bemoaning the disappearance of the more profound and meaningful creative forms that he cherished, he waxed poetic about the ways in which Hollywood had progressed. Robert Duvall was of the belief that an excessive number of Hollywood actors were more concerned with pandering to specific groups than they were with providing stories that were authentic and affected the audience. According to him, the effect of cinema was decreased because of the focus placed on fleeting fads and the fear of offending people. His viewpoint is that the purpose of film should be to accomplish more than only fulfill the requirements of society. It should touch people, elicit genuine feelings, and provoke thinking. It was when Duvall recalled something that had occurred in the past with regard to a well-known Hollywood actor that his thoughts became even more certain. During his interview on CBS's 60 Minutes in 2004, Duvall publicly reprimanded Steven Spielberg, who was one of the co-founders of DreamWorks. Game of Thrones director Steven Spielberg's questionable trip to Cuba in November 2002 was the initial spark that ignited the debate. After making a resolute proclamation, Duvall stated that he would never again work with DreamWorks or Spielberg. It was clear from his remarks that he was feeling both dissatisfied and angry over what he saw to be a betrayal committed by a person whom he held in high esteem. In this confrontation, which went beyond a normal disagreement, the primary issue was whether or not Duvall should be allowed to stand up for his convictions. It was more essential to him to be honest in his work and to uphold his own ideals than it was to achieve success and notoriety. Because he believes that the company ought to place a higher value on ideals and innovation than it does on celebrity and connections, he made the decision to sever relations. It was via taking a forceful stand that Duvall was able to communicate his vision for a Hollywood that placed a high emphasis on authenticity and delivering stories that were honest. He longed for a day when artists may pursue their passions without burdening themselves with concerns about what other people would think of them. One of Duvall's favorite things to do was to listen to stories. It was a safe haven for artists, a place where their work could be seen in its full glory. A great number of people were moved by his comments, which demonstrated that he was more than just an actor. He had a tremendous concern for film as an art form. The impulse to sacrifice one's authenticity and adapt to the demands of society was something that he strongly encouraged other creative individuals to reject. Acting is more than just a career for Robert Duvall. It is a calling to tell stories that have the potential to have a profound impact in an industry that has a propensity to be shallow. Due to the fact that he was so committed to being himself, Duvall stood out. In the course of their dispute, it became abundantly evident that he and Steven Spielberg held profoundly divergent ideas on the film industry. The method that Steven Spielberg used to create blockbuster films was one that veteran actor and filmmaker Duvall held a strong disdain for. The film business was changed by Spielberg's innovative concepts and unprecedented use of visual effects in blockbuster films such as Jurassic Park, Jaws, and E.T. Spielberg's contributions to the film industry were groundbreaking. Although this method was a departure from actual narrative for Duvall, viewers found these films to be pioneering in terms of the tremendous amount of exhilarating entertainment they provided. In his opinion, films with a large budget tended to prioritize spectacle over significant characters and performances while they were being made. The preference that Duvall has always had is for smaller, more intimate films that place a greater focus on performance and real-life stories. According to him, viewers were able to identify with the characters in these films to a greater extent, since they displayed a more complex aspect of human nature. Frustrated, Duvall watched as films that were crammed with CGI and action-packed gained to prominence in the film industry. In his opinion, this method was detrimental to the core essence of acting, since it treated characters as if they were objects for the sake of displaying effects. The issues that Duvall had were shared by a larger group of people who were concerned about the path that Hollywood was taking. According to his point of view, the true beauty of film was being overshadowed by the requirement for higher expenditures and more spectacular graphics. In his opinion, the stories that were conveyed in movies had the potential to elicit true emotions in the people who watched them. When filmmakers placed an excessive amount of importance on aesthetics, they ran the risk of losing sight of what it was that gave movies their profound emotional impact. Part 3 of The Godfather was one of the most stunning moments of Duvall's career. This was due to the fact that, after the incredible success of the two films that came before it, fans were anticipating seeing all of the old faces who had been in the previous films. On the other hand, the decision that Duvall made to not come back was astonishing to everyone. Despite the series' widespread popularity and long-lasting influence, he had the impression that people engaged in production did not respect him and neglected him. The issue that Robert Duvall faced with The Godfather Part 3 was not so much related to the role that he played or the screenplay that he was facing, but rather to who he was overall. When it came to the third feature picture, his co-star from the two films that came before it, Al Pacino, was guaranteed a significantly higher quantity of money. For Duvall, who played Tom Hagen, a prominent character and trusted counselor to the Corleone family, the amount was far smaller than what was offered to him. For Duvall, money was not the only thing that counted. Justice and respect were also very essential to him. Due to the crucial part that he played in the Godfather series, he believed that he should have been accorded the same level of recognition as Pacino, who played Michael Corleone. On the other hand, the studio held a disagreeable viewpoint. In contrast to Duvall, Pacino would anticipate receiving a substantial sum. Duvall took a resolute position with regard to this issue. He was unable to bring himself to take part in the film negotiations if he believed that the studio did not respect him sufficiently to offer him a wage that was competitive with the market. His demands, on the other hand, were not satisfied by the studio. Duvall took a hard stance on what he thought to be a matter of respect, and he refused to back down from his position. Last but not least, he came to the conclusion that he did not wish to participate in The Godfather Part 3. The production continued without him, and rather than being replaced, Tom Hagen's role was completely rewritten. Upon the debut of the picture, a number of fans expressed their disappointment that Duvall was not there. In this particular instance, a well-known actor refused to comply with an unfair system that was enforced by Hollywood studios. Duvall was more concerned with being loyal to his ideals than he was with the wealth that he was receiving. Due to the fact that he placed a higher priority on justice, he decided to leave one of the most legendary film series in history. He made a big statement with his decision, which was that honesty was of the utmost importance, particularly in the ruthless entertainment world. Even now, after all these years, there are still people who are speculating about how the third installment of The Godfather may have been different if Duvall had been present. On the other hand, the decision was crystal apparent for Duvall. He would choose to withdraw from the situation rather than give in to the pressure, so establishing his reputation as a warrior who refuses to back down from a cause. Over the course of his successful acting career, Robert Duvall has worked with a number of renowned directors of cinema. The one filmmaker, Stanley Kubrick, was the only one with whom he flatly refused to work with. Notable and illustrious works by Kubrick include but are not limited to The Shining 2001, A Space Odyssey, Eyes Wide Shut, and A Clockwork Orange. He received a great deal of praise for his films because of their innovative style and emotionally affecting narratives. In spite of this, Kubrick was known behind the scenes for his tendency to force his actors to exert themselves to the point of wearing them out. This was something that Duvall simply was unable to comprehend in any shape or form. Kubrick's work was marked by a directing technique that has been described as harsh and even brutal. It was on the set of The Shining that one of the most well-known accounts about this phenomenon emerged. Shelley Duvall came very close to losing her life while her character Wendy, the frightened wife of Jack Nicholson, was being portrayed in that movie. Kubrick encouraged her to act out situations for many days, which resulted in her crying hysterically. Her mental and physical reserves were depleted as a result of the sheer number of takes that were performed. At the same time, Shelley and Robert Duvall described it as a nightmare. I was unable to deal with it. According to him, Kubrick's style was responsible for the destruction of performances since it deprived artists of their genuine emotion and excitement. In 2010, Duvall made a public remark on this matter, in which he referred to Kubrick as an actor's enemy, due to the manner in which he pushed players to their emotional and physical boundaries. According to Duvall, the emotional toll that it took on the performers could not be compensated for by any amount of expert editing. According to his point of view, acting is an art form that ought to be cherished and should not be sacrificed for the sake of a director's fixation with achieving photographic perfection. As his powerful statements served to remind, Duvall believed that the most important aspect of cinema was not the film itself, but rather the performances of the actors in the film.